Please tell me, can you see the screen?
Yeah,
we can.
Okay, thank you. Guru Valha, Guruve Tunai. Thank you, Thangarajan and Ganga Kumaranaya, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on science of Sattva Guna. So first what we would see is, we'll see what the literature says about the three types of guna, which is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And in particular emphasis with notes on Bhagavad Gita. We'll spend some time on learning some basic neuroanatomy, especially with regards to the vagus nerve. And I'll introduce the concept of polyvagal theory and look into how polyvagal theory is linked to yoga practice. And finally, we will wrap it up with how sky yoga practice fits into all of these things. So the concept of three gunas was first noted in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, which is one of the Yajurveda, from the Yajurveda. And in that, it's mentioned as the material nature consists of three modes, which is mainly goodness, passion, and ignorance. So the concept of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas Guna was introduced by sage Kapila, who sort of proposed the Samkhya philosophy. The Samkhya philosophy is one of the six main Indian philosophies, the others being, as you know, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. The Samkhya's view is that the world is of dual nature. The pure cosmic consciousness, which is the Purusha, and the Prakriti, which is the cosmic energy. So its view is that the interaction between the Purusha and Prakriti causes the evolution and the reality around us. It also puts forward the view that everything in the material nature and the universe is composite of three gunas. And from three gunas evolves all the other, what they call as Mahatattvas, the Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas, the five subtle elements and five gross elements, all of which constitutes about 25 sort of tattvas. But the basic understanding is it's a dual nature, the Purusha and Prakriti. So depending upon the combination of that, it will manifest or not manifest. So the unmanifest state of Prakriti is nothing but the combination of three gunas in a state of perfect balance. At some point when this balance is disturbed in favor of Rajas, it leads to the evolution of the material world, including the human beings. And that's what is the main principle of the Samkhya regarding the gunas. So Samkhya Karika's slogas goes on to say, Sattva is considered to be light and illuminating, Rajas to be exciting and restless, and Tamas to be indeed very heavy and enveloping. It also makes the analogy to Sattva as the cotton wig, which is light, which has a very light property, as you can imagine. The basin itself, the ball itself, is heavy property, which is the Tamas. And the oil which flows is compared to the Rajas. So once you dip the wick into the oil, then it takes on its property, and depending upon the various proportions, the light illuminates. And that's what the Samkhya Karika proposes with regards to the guna. So as I told you, majority of these mentioning about these three gunas are related to the Bhagavad Gita. in various chapters. I think it's quite a few slokas are dedicated to these three gunas. What we need to understand is from sattva, the knowledge is born. And from rajas, the greed is born. And tamas arises because of the negligence and delusion and also ignorance. So that's what we have to understand. So we can apply these three gunas to sort of various sorts of things, which I'll tell in a minute. But the basic features of the three gunas, the sattva is defined as poise, finesse, lightness, harmony, illumination, honesty, truthfulness, etc. The rajas is can be defined as dynamism, vitality, activity, lust, conquest, greed, and it can go on defining in various ways. And the tamas, obviously, inertia, rigidity, ignorance, delusion, laziness, dullness, grief, all these can be alluded to tamas. So how can we sort of correlate these three gunas to various sorts of the tyaga, the karma, the food we eat and other things? So with regards to the tyaga, the three gunas are related to sattva as renouncing attachment, but not sort of expecting any sort of fruits of the action. The rajas, people have the quality of abandoning the work that is perceived to be either too difficult or strenuous and painful. And the tamas quality, they abandon the work that needs to be done in a regulated way. So this can be again compared to various sorts of other things like austerity. The sattva you can define with relating to the austerity as austerity practiced with sincerity, deep faith, and steadfastness. The rajas, austerity performed with hypocrisy and ostentation, and the tamas, austerity performed under delusion. So again, with regards to the karma, the sattva guna are the people who do all the work but don't expect any personal reward. Whereas the rajas quality people are mainly driven by desire to gain some personal reward. And the tamas, obviously they take all the actions that they take is out of delusion. So the basic quality of sattva, you can sort of say as concise driven motivation, and the rajas as desire driven motivation, and the tamas as no motivation at all. So what are the type of food these type of people eat? So the sattva individuals, they are vegetarians. They eat freshly prepared food in moderation, and they respect the food with respect and gratitude. Whereas the rajas quality people, they eat bitter, sour, salty, hot, burning food, and they consume the food quite hurriedly and voraciously. And the tamas, they eat sort of stored food, spoiled food, and overeating with disrespect. So going on to how this is related to buddhi, sattva is knowing when to act and when not to act, what leads to bondage and what leads to liberation. The rajas quality individuals, knowing incorrectly with error in discrimination, vulnerable to ego-driven desires and prejudices. The tamas quality individuals, they know completely wrong, believe in what is wrong to be right, unwilling to see the light. So with regards to the jnana, the sattva individuals, the knowledge which is synthetic, seeing unity in apparent diversity, they see one indivisible whole in multiple divisions. The rajas quality individuals, the knowledge is ego-driven. They see all beings as separate and divided, as multiple entities of different kinds. The tamas quality individuals, they are very narrow-minded, clings rigidly to one plan of action, not caring for the purpose or context. So the other aspects we can sort of classify sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic depending upon the place you go, the time of the day, the company of the people you have, the activities, the music you listen, and the religion you practice and other things. So what Gita says is based on these things, the nature of the food preferred, the nature of the renunciation performed, the nature of the sacrifice offered, the nature of the giving offered, the nature of the austerity offered, the nature of the knowledge assimilated, the nature of the act, the nature of the doer of the action, the nature of the intellect in understanding, the nature of the associated resolve, and the nature of the happiness enjoyed, you can quantify. It's obviously a qualitative assessment. It's not an objective assessment. So you can actually quantitate yourself and see where you score based on these practices that you follow in your daily life. And you can judge yourself, your typical guna composition. Are you predominantly rajas? You predominantly tamas? Or you predominantly sattva? Obviously, we all have all three gunas, but in varying proportions. So next, I will go into the concept of triune brain theory. Triune brain theory was coined by Paul MacLean, who is a psychologist, which was coined somewhere around in 1960. It's a helpful way to think about different layers of mammalian brain. So in his view, the brain is developed over the course of vertebrate evolution into three-layered organ. They reflect the evolutionary progress of humankind from primitive to the intelligent. So the oldest layer is the reptilian brain, so somewhere around here, so which is related to the brainstem. So it dominates in the brains of the lizards, snakes, etc. This brain layer does not learn very well from experience, but they are inclined to repeat the instinctual behaviors over and over again in a very fixed way. But humans, in this part of the brain is related to, this part of the brain is related to breathing, heart rate, and balance. So next, the mammalian brain has a major role. It's related to the limbic system, and it has a major role in human emotions. We share this part of the brain with other mammals. So if you see this picture here, this is a cat of my neighbor's called Mila. She's always here in our house. You can see how attached she is. They spend most of the time here, to be honest. And you can see how comfortable and cozy in my lap. And you can sort of judge this prototypic mammalian emotional response. They start to purr, and they feel safe and loved near you, and they curl upon your lap. So this is the mammalian sort of response. The third part is the neocortex or the Neo-Mammalian brain, which are related to the cerebral hemispheres here. So that's the home for the complex cognitive, linguistic, motor, sensory, and social abilities. It gives us the considerable flexibility and creativity in adapting to a changeable environment. The cortical functions actually helps us to socialize and control expression of emotions that originate in the limbic system. So in a nutshell, the reptilian brain is in the brainstem, and it's always in a survival state. They always, those animals, they always look for whether they are safe or not. The limbic brain always asks whether I am being loved. And obviously the executive, the cortical brain and the prefrontal lobes always ask for what can I learn from anything. Next, we'll go into the autonomic nervous system. I'm sure everyone would have heard of the two main divisions, which is parasympathetic and sympathetic. The parasympathetic system is mainly for the function of rest and digest, and the sympathetic is fight or flight response. So parasympathetic is basically a relaxation response, and sympathetic is a stress response. So physiologically, what you see when parasympathetic is dominant is your pupils constrict, there is salivation, your heart rate is decreased, your digestion is enhanced, and which sort of helps with immunity and neural functioning. Whereas in a sympathetic response, your pupils are dilated, your heart rate increases, you feel agitated, your digestion is inhibited, which all leads to the dysregulation of your homeostatic mechanisms in your human body. So a little bit more about the anatomy. So we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves. The first pair of cranial nerve is the olfactory nerve, which takes the sensation from your nose to the human brain. The optic nerve, which is responsible for your eyesight. The oculomotor nerve, which is involved for the movement of your eye muscles. But what we are interested is in the vagus nerve, which is the 10th pair of cranial nerves. Now, all these other nerves, they originate from the brain and they mainly supply the face. Whereas this vagus nerve, if you can see, it comes all the way up to the pelvis or lower part of your abdomen. So when we want to learn more about what we are going to deal with today's topic, we need to know two particular things. One is called the nucleus ambiguous, which is basically concentration of the neuronal cells within the brainstem from which the nerve evolves. So we are particularly interested in this nucleus ambiguous and the dorsal vagal nucleus. So the dorsal vagal nucleus or the dorsal vagal complex is parasympathetic, which we learned that it slows down your heart, improves digestion, and other things. The nucleus ambiguous part of the nucleus is responsible for the movement of your, mainly for the swallowing and the phonation, for the muscles involved in the pharynx, larynx, and the palate. It also slows down the heart. So these two nucleus are important to understand the concept of polyvagal theory and how we sort of relate yoga to that. So this is again a view of the brain from underneath, where all the cranial nerves emerges. This green bit is the vagus nerve, which emerges from the brainstem. And it wanders all the way around. That's why it's called wandering nerve. So it starts from the brain, as you can see, goes and supplies the muscles of the pharynx and larynx here. It supplies the ear bit, which will come to that in the later part. So it supplies around the neck for the phonation and other things, and to the respiratory system in the bronchi here, to the heart, and for all of the gastrointestinal tract. So which summarizes where the vagus now starts and where it sort of wanders around the whole of your body up to the pelvis. So I just introduced this concept of polyvagal theory, which was coined by an eminent neuroscientist from US, from North Carolina. His name is Stephen Porges. So he proposed this polyvagal theory. It's a science-based theory that provides explanation of how our autonomic state influences and is influenced by the dynamic challenges in life. So we all come into this world wired to connect. With our first breath, we embark on a quest to feel safe in our bodies, around our environment, and in our relationship with others. The autonomic nervous system is like a personal surveillance system. It's like a CCTV. It's always on the guard. It's always asked whether I am safe. And its goal is to protect us by sensing the safety and the risk. And it listens every moment by moment, every millisecond. It sort of constantly surveys, and it sort of sends signals to the brain. So he introduced this concept of polyvagal theory. We obviously know what is sympathetic. So the parasympathetic system is again divided into two bits, which is the ventral vagal system, which we sort of alluded to, that it comes from the ventral vagal complex, which is the nucleus ambiguous, and the dorsal vagal system, which is the dorsal vagal nucleus. So in the so we don't need to touch upon this sympathetic because we know that it's a fight and flight response. And the ventral vagal, as I told you, is divided into two branches. One is the related to the social engagement system. When you're connected to the society, to the people around you, and you feel compassionate, you feel joyful and mindful what's happening around you. So the other parasympathetic system is a complete numbing response. You are dissociated from the surrounding, you are numb, you are shut down, and you feel hopeless, you feel trapped, you feel helpless. So this is a different sort of system of parasympathetic thing. So it's parasympathetic is divided into two. Traditionally, it was defined as the rest and digest. So we have two in the polyvagal theory. It is defined as two different sort of tracks. One is the social engagement system. The other one is a complete shutdown response. And what they call it as an autonomic ladder. The sympathetic is the fight and flight response again. And when your ventral vagal system is involved, you feel connected to the outer world. And when the dorsal vagal system overtakes, then you feel completely shut down. So this you can relate to the hierarchy of the evolution. So the oldest part of the brain, which is the reptilian brain, is most of the time it's immobilized. They always function with the parasympathetic dorsal vagal system, which is a shutdown response. And next in the evolution, we develop the fight and flight response, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And obviously the newest system, which all human beings possess, is the safe and social parasympathetic ventral vagal system. So apart from the vagus nerve, which functions on its own, it also sort of interacts with the other cranial nerves, which I told you there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So they are particularly important, especially up here where they reduce the heart rate, but also with the phonation and swallowing, but also with the other cranial muscles, especially the emotions which we express through the facial muscles, the music which we listen through the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is the listening component, through the middle ear muscles, and the muscles of eating. So they are all interlinked, the cranial nerves along with the 10th cranial nerve. So now we'll see how we apply this polyvagal theory to the yoga practice. So the polyvagal theory can conceptualized as a neurophysiological counterpart to the yogic concepts of the gunas or qualities of nature. Similar to the neural platforms described in the polyvagal theories, the gunas provide the foundation from which the behavioral, emotional, and physical attributes emerge. So one is based on the neurophysiology, and the other one is based on the ancient wisdom tradition, which highlights the yoga therapy's promotion of physical, mental, and social well-being for self-regulation and resilience. So just a recap of this ventral vagal complex, which I told you is the nucleus ambiguous, which originates in the brainstem, is predominantly related to the social engagement system. They coordinate the muscles of the face, head, the windpipe, and the heart. They also support the prosocial behavior and social connection. It also supports the homeostasis of the viscera, that's the functioning of all the bodily functions, and restoration of the facial expressions and the prosodic vocalization and enhanced ability to listen to a voice. And obviously, we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response. And the other one is the dorsal vagal complex, which is related to which originates in the dorsal nucleus of the vagus, and which is the most primitive, which we learned. So it's complete freeze response. So, this is probably the most important slide where we are linking these vagal nuclei and vagal tracts to the various three gunas. So what yoga teaches is that suffering arises from individual relationship, reaction to, and misidentification with various body, mind, and environment. So what we need to do is learn the process of discernment, which is taught through inquiry into the differences of various material nature, which is termed as prakriti, as we learned earlier, and purusha. So the clarity that arises from this discrimination and realization of the difference between the purusha and prakriti, which is the cosmic consciousness and the material world, shifts the yoga practitioner from the relationship of body, mind, environment phenomenon, and such as suffering, and then suffering is eased and experience is enjoyed. And we go into a state of joy and eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is basically a Greek word which means good or well. It often relates to happiness, welfare, well-being, or flourishing. So based upon the which neural platform is predominant, we sort of express ourselves various sorts of gunas. So people who are predominantly sattvic, the ventral vagal complex sort of predominates, and they are socially engaged all the time. And the emerging properties would be they are connected with people, they have more clarity, they are calm, they're tranquil, and they show equanimity. And obviously, when they are mixed in proportions, you get various sort of emerging properties. So if you look at the flight and flight response, people who are always fearful, anger, and greed, the sympathetic nervous system predominates. And if you see these people are always agitated, they have palpitation, sweating, And basically, they have an anxiety disorder when people have predominant of these qualities. And if you see the last one down below, the dorsal vagal complex, which is related to the shutdown response, they are predominantly have tamasic quality. They are dull, they are ignorant, they are dissociated from everyone, and so they are in a state of inertia. So next we'll move on to how we can sort of improve the sattvic qualities. So the various things that's proposed are, one is chanting. So it makes the connection of the voice to the heart. It's primarily because the vagus nerve, as I told you, wanders all the way down, and it also sort of innervates or gives nerve supply to the muscles that we speak and sort of phonate and eat and other things. So when we chant, if you allow me to chant a thing from Rigveda, Gana anam tva ganapatihum havamahe kavin kavinam upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam brahmanam brahmanaspata anun shruvannuti sida sadhanam. So when you do that chanting, you take a deep breath in, and then there is a long exhalation, deep breath in, and a long exhalation. So this chanting can be of any size. It's related to all religions, as you can see. It's related to Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, whatever. So whatever your chant may be, when you chant, what I want you to understand is there's a long exhalation, which helps with increasing the vagal tone. Sorry, that was the meaning of the chant that I chanted earlier. So next, going to the pranayama, the Nadisuddhi pranayama, it has the heart connection again because of the, as I told you, the long exhalation. So what is normally recommended is in the ratio of 1:2. So if you take inhalation of 4 seconds, you breathe out for 8 seconds or so. So 1:2 ratio is always good in enhancing the vagal break or vagal tone. So the other things which can sort of enhance the sattvic guna is your asanas and dance movements. So the various asanas, you can sort of, whenever you bend, straighten up, whenever the upper half of the body bends over the lower half of the body, the diaphragm is involved, and then there is the vagus nerve comes through the diaphragm, so you activate the vagus nerve there and slows down your heart. And also it is connected to the various neck movements, especially is connected to the what we call as the Barrow receptors, the carotid baroreceptors in the neck. So the carotid baroreceptors, the carotid baroreceptors is like a small swelling, which is the carotid artery, which goes from the heart into the neck, into the brain. So that's where it's located in the neck. And they constantly sense your blood pressure, how you breathe, the depth of the breathing, and everything. So all these postures, dance, or whatever you do, whenever you turn the neck, this carotid baroreceptors are activated and they increase the vagal tone. So whenever you increase the vagal tone, the heart rate decreases as well, and you're sort of calm during that period. Next is listening to the music. Obviously, it connects your, the listening connects to your heart and you're sort of calm. So it's just a summary of what we did earlier, the chants, the pranayamas, the postures, the music, they all have a bit of scientific explanation and reason behind it. Next, I want to move into a little bit on the ego entrapment in relationship. Now, as you can see at the bottom, we have three qualities there: fear, grief, and apathy. And the top three as lust, anger, and pride. So the fear, grief, and apathy is related to the tamas guna, and the lust, anger, and pride is related to the rajas guna. So what we want is to move away from all these tamas and rajas guna into the sattva guna. When you are entrapped in these, at the bottom half, you are in deep non-awareness. So at this level, it's just the base instincts that you express. You are ego trapped. You are in a constant state of fear. And the way it's expressed is you always blame other people. Your heart is always at war. You have distorted views, and you start to shift responsibility. So you are ego trapped here. So you need to move from this a non-awareness to an awareness state by developing the sattva guna. So once you move from awareness to non-awareness state, you have the courage and accept things. You start to develop love and compassion. You start to trust people, and you're at peace. And this is your true self, love. So here in the bottom half, in the non-awareness, when you have a stimulus, when something happens in your life, something unexpected happens or something serious happens, the gap between the stimulus and response is very narrow. So you won't be able to respond in a proper way. You won't be able to judge things correctly, and you go into a state of shutdown here because the gap is very small. Whereas if you move into the state of awareness, you can see the space is widens. You start to think, you start to judge. You start to discern what is right and wrong, and for the good cause and for the wider society. So this is what you need to move towards from being predominantly tamas and rajasic guna to the sattva guna. So we can compare that analogy in whatever it's like, say for example, you can take a husband and wife relationship. So when both are in the tamasic guna, you can't come out of that relationship. That is doomed. So you have to move from that to a sustainable relationship. Even if one comes out of that and the other one doesn't come, still it is not sustainable, that relationship. If one moves into the awareness region and start to be more and more of a sattvic person, showing trust, love, and compassion, the other person will sense that and will automatically try to move out of it. And that's, even though it's not a win-win situation, it is a reasonably win situation because you don't want to be in this state. So in a nutshell, we can say the asanas reduce the rajoguna the pranayamas reduce the tamoguna, and the meditation will enhance the sattvic guna. Now I will bring into our Maharishi's simplified Kundalini Yoga, the practice of the physical exercises and the meditation, how it helps to improve the sattvic guna. So these are the, why I put this slide on. I think I put this slide on because I recently completed this certificate course, Brahma Gnani course, and that's why Angarajanan asked me to reflect on introspection, but I told that I'm not ready for it. Rather, I'm reading about Polyvagal Theory and the Sattvic Guna. I would rather do that. So obviously, we'll come to that in a minute. So all these physical exercises that we do. So earlier I told when you twist, all these various components of these physical exercises, when we twist the body, turn the neck, all these various postures, especially the Vajrasana, we are activating the vagus nerve, to be honest, in all these postures. And again, here, when we turn the neck around, we are activating the carotid Barrow receptors in the neck. So all these helps to reduce the heart rate by increasing the vagal tone. Again, coming to the neuromuscular exercises, when we do these exercises, if you concentrate on breathing with 1:2 ratio, again, we can improve the vagal tone. I always wondered why we had this thing after the physical exercises, we do this. Why do we put our finger, thumb into the ear? So the scientific explanation I have is the vagus nerve, one of the branches of the vagus nerve called the auricular branch of the vagus, innervates this bit of the ear, supplies this bit of the ear. So up here. So if we stimulate this bit of the ear, we automatically stimulate the vagus, thereby we increase the vagal tone. Again, in the Makarasana postures, both in the supine and prone position, in the lying down position with face facing upwards and backwards, we twist the body and the neck in a different direction, which again sort of promotes the increasing the vagal tone by stimulating the Barrow receptors in the neck. And obviously with the meditation, with the Nadi, Pranayama, we decrease the wavelength from the beta to the delta state, and we experience calm and tranquility. And obviously, all the various meditations that's proposed by Maharishi, they all help to develop sattva guna. So let us practice Maharishi's philosophy of life based on the needs, protection, virtues, and development of consciousness. And let us forego the 6 temperaments and the 5 sins and develop tolerance, charity, generosity, chastity, equality, and forgiveness. Introspect ourselves, analyzing our thoughts, moralizing our desires, neutralizing our angers, eradicating our worries, and paving our way for sublimation and perfection. Let us remove all our egos, imprints, and illusion, and let us breathe it all in and love it all out. வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Thank you.
ரொம்ப அருமையான ஒரு ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் டாக்டர். அதாவது ஒரு பெரிய ரிசர்ச் சப்ஜெக்டையே வந்து நட்ஷல்ல கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க. இதை கிராஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு வந்து நமக்கு தான் வந்து நாலேஜ் வந்து தேவை. ரொம்ப அருமையான ஒரு ப்ரெசன்டேஷன். பார்ட்டிசிபென்ட்ஸ் உங்களுக்கு எதுவும் வந்து ஐயா சொன்ன தகவல்களில் வந்து டவுட் இருந்ததுன்னா கேட்கலாம். வாழ்க வளமுடன்.
Quite happy for anyone to add information, or if they have, if they notice any sort of anything wrong or mistakes, I'm quite happy to accept it. I stand corrected.
Dr. Sivakumar, வாழ்க வளமுடன். Very nice presentation. Actually, it is one of my life ambition to link all the Vedantri principles with the proper medical and the scientific principles. And you have really helped a lot by this presentation. And this is one of my area of research also, polyvagal theory, how the vagus nerves works, and how we can use the vagus as a medicinal principle in the application. And whatever you said really resonates with whatever readings and research which I'm doing on my daily life, and it gives so much of confidence that the time has come that we should be able to take this concept with a proper scientific and medical background to the next generation, because I feel the next generation will not follow as much as the previous generations if you're not covering it up with a proper scientific and research background. I'm very convinced with your stimulation of vagus nerve with positions and the finger in the ears and pranayama. They're all really absolutely true. The only next step is possibly we should make a proper paper publications, not just the yoga based journals. We should make it into the medical based and scientific journals. That may be the next step. Just yesterday, I'm a doctor in Birmingham City Hospital. I discussed with our R&D chief, Derek Connelly. He's a cardiologist, to see how we can do a kind of randomized control trial. And there was some interest, but it's quite difficult also. I mean, being a doctor, you can understand as equal to me. There is only one area, Dr. Sivakumar, if you permit me. I slightly deviate from your views. In the sense, like, I may be absolutely wrong. I'm absolutely happy to get stand corrected. I mean, Sattva Guna is the best. There is no doubt in that. We will end up having some Rajva Gunas and sometimes Tamasa Gunas, and we should try to win them and stay ourselves in Sattva Guna. Those are all very nicely said. Only in the division of the brain, the forebrain is more of our present human one, which goes always outside, look for some, say, wish to go for a trip or seeing a cinema or something like that. The middle one, as you said, is the amphibian one, which is more of a limbic system, which is what responsible for the fear, which is the reason for the hypertension, including the skin wrinkling, aging, etc. And the lowermost one, which is the reptilian one, which is a much more calmer one. I looked at it slightly in a very positive manner, but in your slides you mentioned it slightly as a negative manner, if I'm correct. And even in the meditation, I always feel that we should shut down the frontal component, get away from the limbic component, and get into that very cozy reptilian component, which gives us the deep meditation, connection to the Brahman, etc. I mean, I really respect every slide what you did, except in that area I feel my understanding is slightly deviating from your speech, and please clarify.
I haven't researched much into it, but I completely understand where you are coming from. All these things, I mean, it's only in the last few months I have looked into, but I understand your concept of completely shutting down, being in the dorsal vagal component, for being sort of to take your the flurry of thoughts away. I completely understand that, but I'm not sure whether there are any papers relating to that, but I'm not sure. I mean, if you want, you can tell me if there are any papers. I'm quite happy to look into it.
Sure, definitely. I will try to make it as much scientific as possible. I've also got some similar topics, as you said.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is, as I said, I really, really stand corrected. Even I am in the stage of research. But
Yeah.
my only two small things is that most reptilian brain is not as bad as we think, and the dorsal vagal component also is not as bad as we think. But we will work it together, and I'll be so happy that I have somebody who I can pair up with.
Yeah, I think it's the proportion that we need to look at. If predominantly, if you are in that system, that's where the problem comes. So yeah, I'm quite happy to sort of speak to you at any time, and then we can look into it. So my as I told you, my next step is to obviously look into as you said, to link these neurophysiological mechanisms into it. The next one I have in mind is the neurophysiology of pranayama. So that's what I've started to read into. So we can go in depth into that probably in the next presentation or something. I hope it wasn't too medical or anything like that when I was sort of trying to talk about neuroanatomy. I tried to be as basic I can. Because I don't want to go into the depth of physiology and anatomy.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sivakumar. Well done.
I'm Dr. Kamraj. It's so nice to see both doctors, how you comparing things. At the moment, I'm a doctor in yoga naturopathy, and I'm follower of Sky Yoga since my childhood. At the moment, I'm based in Bristol. I'm doing the long COVID cases at the moment, doctor. So he was talking about the research paper to submit. So since 6 months, I'm working on the long COVID patients. There is a lot of tremendous results coming through. People who's been suffering all their fatigue symptoms and things, which is the COVID conditions are affecting after vaccine and after COVID. The rehabilitation takes place in the neurological effect only. All I did is just teaching them in our simple exercise, Kayakalpa, and our meditation techniques only, and the basic simple breathing. Very tremendous result. I challenge them 21 days to come out of it. Within 4 or 5 days, they are tremendous result going through. So if doctor is interested in just putting up together and submitting to NHS in UK as our system of things, like in a proper research paper, I'm willing to join you hands. Just let me know.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I'm a GP based in Lancaster. Whenever people come with anxiety, depression, and other things, I started to teach them. It just take a couple of minutes for them to teach the Nadi Shuddhi Pranayama. So I teach them for a couple of minutes. I mean, it's not many cases, probably around 20, 30 patients, because they all are not that keen. And our consultation is around 10 minutes or so. It's very difficult to fit into all those things. But people whom I have taught have come back and definitely have told that it sort of gives a tremendous results. And this polyvagal theory, which I mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar business now. It's a trauma-based therapy that's practiced all over the world. Even though it's called theory, because it's not accepted by certain disciplines, it's practiced all over the world. It's basically sort of all these postures and breathing exercises and a bit of psychology involved in it. Yeah, I'm happy to share my email, and we can sort of with Anandakumar as well. If like-minded people are there, then definitely we can take it to the next level. Yeah.
Please do, doctor. And I a few years ago, I came across with someone who did the research submission on the polyvagal and then the vagal nervous system related with yoga and pranayama. And I'm happy to share you that that will be really helpful for you to guide the direction that what you're looking for.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, doctors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we still have a time for another question, if that's okay? Dr. Sivakumar. I think this is your first presentation, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. It was wonderful. Yeah.
I did one after the foundation course. I reflected it, but this is probably a proper presentation, I would say.
Right. Yeah.
Practicing Sky Yoga. Yeah.
Starting itself like Dhoni, you have done a very good job. Congratulations for the first presentation. It was excellent. Actually, usually whenever people talk about meditation, yoga, and physiology, they connect with central nervous system. They do all the EEG and other stuff going into delta. But first time I'm seeing a dimension which is parasympathetic, sympathetic, all this autonomous nervous system. So it connects well and it's excellent. I hope we'll have more presentations on these kind of topics in future. I have just two questions. The first one, maybe it might be a dumb question. You've shown the reptilian brain and the frontal cortex depiction with the pictures. That looked nice, but you didn't talk about the occipital side of the brain. Is there any significance?
The occipital side?
Yeah.
The occipital side, there isn't any particular. It's more related to the brainstem, the limbic system, and the
frontal cortex. Okay, I see.
So the brainstem is related to the reptilian brain, and the limbic to the mammalian.
To the emotional and for the learning.
And the other thing is the Neo-Mammalian brain or the human brain.
All right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, when you clearly explained, sympathetic is just for the flight and fight, but for the parasympathetic, you've shown a couple of things connecting with the society and the other things, the behavioral important things. But is there any study related to yoga, meditation, going beyond the normal happiness, love, and affection behaviors? Anything related to like euphoric effect or yoga, meditation, connections with these parasympathetic activities? Or
no, I haven't gone that far, to be honest. I have to be. I haven't looked into it. Even this, it took quite a long time to get my head around.
No. It's a tremendous work. I can see this is not a simple thing. You've connected your Vedas and our Vedas is exercise and also physiology, especially autonomous nervous system. For the first time, I'm hearing in connection with the yoga. So excellent, and I can see the volume of work you put into it. So could you please share this presentation with us? So it will be useful. Yeah.
Of course, I will put it in the group. Yeah.
Yeah, it was overall excellent. All government.
All government.
Thank you, Dr. Sivakumar, and thank you all the doctors. See, I think it's a very good group we have now in UK. We are getting more and more scientific research related to the yoga. So, as Dr. Ananda said, we need to connect the yoga with science. The only way we can bring in the next generation of people or people from outside our community into it. So it's a good start. We are in the right track, and Ananda was always wanted to run an MSc module. So we are getting more and more teachers now. It's interesting to know. So I thank you all for that, and we continue to develop. And I need to make an announcement about this upcoming APD, if you don't mind. Currently, there are 5 senior Arunidhis have paid for it, and we are going to run a APD module on the 26th and the 27th, Saturday and Sunday at Venkateshwara Temple at Gandhi Meditation Center. The course will be conducted via Zoom, and the local coordinator will be Professor Rangaraja will be there. So I won't be able to do it. I have a personal appointment to be away. So thank you, Rangaraj. And we are expecting one more person to join. Hopefully that's 6 of us. That will take us to next level. We already have 11 APDs, assistant professors within United Kingdom, and adding more 6 is it's good to us. And the upcoming teachers are like Dr. Sivakumar, Ananda, and others. So hopefully, and also able to spread the gospel in English and other communities. So I wish you all best. And Harry, you want to say Ulaga Nalavatpu? Anyone wants to?
Yeah, I can do it, but if Sivakumar, Dr. Sivakumar wanted to do it, I don't mind.
I honestly haven't memorized it, so.
No problem, yeah. I'll do that, yeah. Okay. உலக நல வாழ்த்து பாடல். உலகமெல்லாம் பருவமழை ஒத்தபடி பெய்யட்டும், உழவரெல்லாம் தானியத்தை உவப்புடனே பெருக்கட்டும், பல தொழில்கள் புரிகின்ற பாட்டாளி உயரட்டும், பகுத்துணர்வில் தொகுத்துணர்வு பண்பாட்டை உயர்த்தட்டும், கலகங்கள் போட்டி பகை கடந்தாட்சி நடக்கட்டும், கல்லாமை கடன் வறுமை கலகங்கள் மறையட்டும், நலவாழ்வை அளிக்கும் ஞான ஒளி வீசட்டும், நம் கடமை அறவாழ்வின் நாட்டத்தே சிறக்கட்டும், நம் கடமை அறவாழ்வின் நாட்டத்தே சிறக்கட்டும், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வையகம், வாழ்க வளமுடன். Peace, peace, peace.